The night Mark Dawson's quiet life exploded wasn't marked by sirens or screams. Just a whisper of fire streaking across the sky before the impact shattered his backyard. And then she crawled out of the wreckage. Not a woman, not human, but something more. Silver blue skin glinting under the moonlight. A form-fitting suit hugging every lethal curve, and eyes like fractured starlight burning into his. Her first words weren't a plea for help. They were a demand. Burn it. Before they find us. Who was she running from? Why did her ship terrify her more than crashing on a hostile planet? And why? As the distant hum of approaching hunters grew louder, did Mark realize he was now part of a war he never signed up for? One thing was certain. If they survived the night, nothing would ever be the same. Please wait. Before we start, tap that card in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now. Hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. Also, you can check the Alien Paradox playlist for more exciting stories. There's a question hidden in the pinned comment below. Crack the code by watching the complete story and answer the question. Alright, let's dive into the story. The night was thick with silence, the kind that made Mark Dawson's skin prickle. He wiped his grease-stained hands on his jeans, tossing the wrench into his toolbox with a clatter. Another long day at the shop, another busted transmission fixed. He stretched, rolling his stiff shoulders, and glanced at the clock. Nearly midnight. Time to crash. Then the sky exploded. A blinding streak of fire split the darkness, followed by a thunderous boom that shook the house. The windows rattled violently, and for a second, Mark thought a bomb had gone off. He bolted to the back door, flinging it open, his heart hammering against his ribs. His backyard was a war zone. A crater smoldered in the middle of his lawn, the grass blackened and smoking. At its center lay a sleek, metallic craft, something straight out of sci-fi flick, all smooth curves and glowing seams. And beside it, motionless, was a figure. Mark hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to call the cops, to run inside and lock the door. But then the figure groaned, shifting weakly. "Hey," he called, stepping closer, his boots crunching on scorched earth. "You okay?" The figure rolled onto its back, and Mark's breath caught. A woman. No, not quite. Her skin had an eerie, silver blue sheen under the moonlight, like polished metal. Her suit clung to her like a second skin, sleek and form-fitting, emphasizing every curve of her powerful frame. Dark hair, streaked with strands of shimmering violet, spilled over her shoulders. She coughed, her piercing violet eyes flicking open, unnaturally bright like twin stars. Mark froze. "What the hell?" She gasped, struggling to sit up, her movements sharp but unsteady. "You, human, listen to me." Her voice was low, urgent, laced with an accent he couldn't place. "Yeah, I'm human," Mark snapped, still backing up. "And you're not. So, how about you start explaining?" She ignored him, her gaze darting to the ship. Panic flashed across her face. "No time. They'll track it. They'll come." She grabbed his arm, her grip shockingly strong. "Burn it. Now." Mark yanked his arm free. "Whoa, lady, or whatever you are, you crash-land a UFO in my yard, and now you're giving me orders?" Her eyes burned into his. "If you value your life, burn it. Before they find us." A distant hum cut through the night, barely audible but growing louder. Mark's blood ran cold. What was that? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into a hidden compartment on her suit and pulled out a small, pulsating orb. It glowed faintly in her palm, casting eerie shadows across her face. "Take this," she thrust it at him. "Throw it into the ship. It'll ignite the core." Mark stared at the orb. "You're telling me to blow up an alien spaceship? In my backyard?" "Yes. That's insane." "So, is dying?" She shot back. The hum grew louder. Closer. Mark swallowed hard. He wasn't a hero. He fixed cars, paid his taxes, and avoided trouble. But the fear in her eyes, real, raw terror, made his decision for him. Fine, he muttered, snatching the orb. But you owe me one hell of an explanation. She didn't smile. If we live. Mark turned toward the wreckage, the orb humming in his grip like a live wire. Whatever was coming, they were out of time. The orb burned in Mark's palm like a chunk of dry ice, sending prickling waves up his arm. He clenched his jaw and took a step toward the wreckage, the strange metal groaning as it cooled in the night air. "You're sure this won't? I don't know. Take out the whole neighborhood?" he asked, eyeing the glowing sphere warily. Nyx limped beside him, her sleek suit torn at the shoulder, revealing skin that shimmered like liquid mercury under the moonlight. "It's a controlled reaction. The ship will vaporize, nothing else." "That's not as reassuring as you think it is," Mark muttered. The humming in the distance had become a steady thrum now, vibrating through his ribs. His backyard floodlight flickered, then died with a pop, plunging them into near darkness. Nyx grabbed his wrist, her fingers surprisingly warm. "Now, human, unless you want to meet what's coming." "Mark," he snapped, yanking his arm free. "My name's Mark. If we're going to commit alien arson together, you could at least use my damn name." A ghost of a smirk touched Nyx's lips. "Throw it, Mark." With a grunt, he hurled the orb at the wreck. It struck the hull with a metallic ping. Then the world turned white. Mark threw his arms up as a wave of heat rolled over them. When he dared lower them, the ship was engulfed in blue flames that licked upward without smoke, the metal curling in on itself like paper in a bonfire. "Holy shit," he breathed. Nyx didn't celebrate. She was staring past the flames, her alien eyes reflecting the eerie light. Too late. "They're here." The thrum became a roar as three black shapes descended from the clouds, sleek as knives and utterly silent despite their speed. Marks get twisted. Those weren't helicopters. They moved like nothing human, hovering without rotors, dark as voids against the starry sky. One detached from the formation, gliding toward his property. A red beam lanced out, scanning the burning wreckage. "We need to move," Nyx hissed, dragging him toward the house. Mark dug in his heels. "Who the hell are they?" "The reason I crashed." She shoved him hard enough to make him stumble. "Now run, unless you enjoy the idea of being dissected." The black craft's beam swung toward them. Mark didn't need more convincing. They bolted for the back door just as the beam lit up the grass where they'd stood, leaving smoldering patches in its wake. He fumbled with the lock, hands shaking. "You could have led with the whole government dissection thing." Nyx crowded behind him, her breath hot on his neck. "Would you have believed me?" The lock clicked. They tumbled inside, just as something heavy landed in the yard with a thud that shook the house. Mark didn't look back. He slammed the door and threw the deadbolt, then grabbed a kitchen chair to wedge under the knob. Through the window, silhouettes moved toward the house. Tall, too tall, their movements eerily synchronized. Nyx grabbed a knife from the block. "Do you have weapons?" Mark stared at her. "I'm a mechanic, not Rambo. I've got a baseball bat and a half-empty bottle of bourbon." She bared her teeth in something that wasn't a smile. "Get the bat." A knock echoed through the house. 3 precise raps on the front door. Mark's blood turned to ice. "They're polite." "That's worse somehow." Nyx pressed against the wall beside the door, knife raised. "Don't answer." The knocking came again, harder this time. "Mark Dawson." A smooth, almost melodic voice called through the wood. "We know you're home." Mark's mouth went dry. They knew his name. Nyx mouthed a single word. "Reapers." The doorknob turned. The chair held. For now. The doorknob rattled again, the wood creaking under pressure. Mark's fingers tightened around the baseball bat, his palms slick with sweat. The bourbon bottle sat untouched on the counter. Liquid courage wouldn't help now. "Mark Dawson," the voice repeated, honey smooth and patient. "We only wish to talk." "Yeah, and I only wish to win the lottery," Mark muttered under his breath. He shot Nyx a panicked look. "Back door." She shook her head sharply, violet eyes flicking toward the kitchen window. Shadows moved outside. They were surrounded. The knocking became pounding, each strike making the doorframe tremble. The chair wedged beneath the knob screeched against the tile floor. Nyx pressed her back against the wall beside the door, the kitchen knife glinting in her hand. When it gives way, she whispered, "Aim for the knees." "Jesus Christ," Mark breathed. "You're telling me to attack aliens with a Louisville slugger? Better than dying on your knees." The pounding stopped. A beat of silence. Then crack. The door exploded inward, the chair splintering like kindling. Mark barely had time to register the figure stepping through before Nyx launched. The Reaper moved faster than anything human. One moment he was framed in the doorway, tall, pale, dressed in a black suit that absorbed the light. The next he'd caught Nyx's wrist mid-strike, twisting with unnatural strength. The knife clattered to the floor. Now, the Reaper chided, his silver eyes glinting. That wasn't very polite. Mark swung the bat. The Reaper caught it one-handed without looking, his grip like iron. "Mr. Dawson, so disappointing." Up close, Mark could see the wrongness in his face. Skin too smooth, features too symmetrical. Like a mannequin come to life. Nyx twisted in the Reaper's grip, driving her elbow into his ribs. He barely flinched, but his grip loosened enough for her to wrench free. "Basement," she shouted, kicking the Reaper square in the chest. He staggered back. One precious step, and she grabbed Mark's arm. "Moo!" They bolted for the hallway as two more Reapers stepped through the ruined door. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs as they crashed down the basement stairs, Nyx slamming the door behind them. "Storm's cellar," Mark gasped, pointing to the far corner. "Leads to the side yard." Nyx didn't hesitate. She yanked open the rusted metal doors, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. The musty scent of damp earth wafted up. Above them, the basement door groaned under repeated impacts. Mark grabbed an old toolbox from the shelf and hurled it up the stairs just as the door gave way. It bought them seconds, precious seconds, as the Reapers dodged the spray of nails and screws. "Go!" Nyx shoved him toward the cellar. Mark's boots slipped on the first rung. The ladder swayed dangerously as he scrambled down, the cold metal biting into his palms. Above, Nyx swung the doors shut behind them, plunging them into near-total darkness. Something heavy slammed against the cellar doors. Dust rained down on them. "They'll be through in seconds," Nyx whispered, her breath warm against his cheek. Mark's foot hit the dirt. He staggered back, making room for Nyx as she dropped the last few feet. The cellar was cramped, lined with dusty shelves of preserves his grandma had put up decades ago. A scraping sound came from above, metal bending. Nyx grabbed his hand, her fingers interlacing with his. Her skin was warmer than he expected, pulsing with an odd energy. "When I say run," she murmured, "don't look back." The cellar doors burst open. Moonlight flooded in, silhouetting three figures at the top of the ladder. Nyx's hand tightened. "Run." They crashed through the cellar's exterior door into the night, just as a shimmering blue energy wave erupted from Nyx's free hand. The blast sent the first Reaper tumbling back, his perfect suit catching fire with an unearthly glow. Mark didn't have time to process what he'd just seen. Nyx dragged him toward the tree line, their feet pounding the damp earth. Behind them, inhuman shrieks pierced the night. "Since when can you do that?" Mark gasped as they crashed through the underbrush. Nyx's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "You wouldn't believe half of what I can do." A shadow dropped from the trees ahead, landing in a crouch. The third Reaper straightened slowly, his silver eyes gleaming. "Actually," Nyx said, skidding to a halt, "you might get a demonstration." The Reaper smiled, revealing teeth too sharp, too many. "Little weapon," he purred. "You've been naughty." Mark raised the bat, and he hadn't realized he'd carried through their escape. "Back off, Tooth Fairy." Nyx's entire body began to hum, the air around her crackling with energy. "Mark," she said quietly, "when I say duck." The Reaper lunged. "Duck!" Mark hit the dirt as Nix's body erupted in blue fire. Mark barely had time to cover his head before the world erupted in blinding blue light. The air crackled with energy, raising every hair on his arms as Nix unleashed something primal and terrifying. The Reaper's scream wasn't human. It was a high-pitched metallic shriek that set Mark's teeth on edge. He dared to peek through his fingers just in time to see the creature get lifted off its feet, its perfect black suit peeling away like burning paper to reveal glistening silver skin beneath. Then Nix clenched her fist. The Reaper imploded with a wet crunch, collapsing inward like a crushed soda can before dissolving into shimmering dust. The sudden silence was deafening. Mark slowly lowered his arms, his mouth hanging open. What the actual hell? Nix swayed on her feet, the blue glow fading from her skin. She looked drained, her breathing ragged. Told you, you'd get a demonstration. Yeah, but you didn't mention you could turn aliens into glitter. Mark scrambled to his feet, catching her as she stumbled. Her body radiated heat like a car engine after a long drive. She leaned against him, her voice weak but still sharp. They're not aliens. Not exactly. Could have fooled me with the whole silver skin and too many teeth thing. Mark glanced nervously at the trees. Are there more? Always. Nix straightened with visible effort. But that bought us time. We need to keep moving. Mark grabbed his discarded bat, eyeing the pile of metallic dust that used to be a Reaper. You couldn't have done that back at the house. Nix shot him a withering look. It takes energy. A lot of energy. I can't just... She suddenly doubled over, clutching her stomach. Mark caught her shoulders. Whoa there, Sparky. You okay? She batted his hands away. I'm fine. Just need a minute. Yeah, you're real convincing. Mark scanned the dark woods. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving his hands shaking. We can't stay here. My buddy Rick has a hunting cabin about a mile north. No one will look for us there. Nix nodded weakly. Lead the way. They moved through the trees, Mark supporting more of Nix's weight with each step. The moon provided just enough light to avoid roots and rocks, but twice Nix tripped, her usual grace completely gone. After the second stumble, Mark stopped. Okay, new plan. He crouched slightly. Get on. Nix blinked at him. What? Piggyback. Unless you'd rather crawl. She hesitated, then looped her arms around his neck. Mark straightened with a grunt. She was lighter than he expected, but still solid muscle. You're surprisingly strong for a meat bag, Nix murmured in his ear. Mark huffed a laugh as he adjusted his grip under her thighs. And you're surprisingly heavy for a glow stick. Her breath was warm against his neck as they moved through the woods. After a few minutes, she spoke again, quieter this time. They made me kill. Mark nearly tripped over a root. Come again. The Reapers. My creators. Her fingers tightened slightly on his shoulders. I'm a weapon, Mark. That blast back there? That's what I was designed to do. Mark swallowed hard, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. So what, you're like some kind of alien super soldier? Something like that. She rested her chin on his shoulder. I escaped. Been running ever since. The trees began to thin, revealing a dilapidated cabin ahead. Rick hadn't used it in years, but the roof looked intact. Mark adjusted his grip, feeling Nix's warmth against his back. Well, congratulations. You just made my weirdest first date ever. Nix pinched his shoulder hard enough to make him yelp. Ow. Okay. Second weirdest. The cabin door creaked ominously as Mark shouldered it open. Dust motes danced in the moonlight, streaming through the dirty windows. It smelled of mildew and old wood smoke, but it was shelter. Mark carefully lowered Nix onto a rickety cot, then immediately started checking the windows. We should be safe here for a few hours at least. Nix was watching him with an unreadable expression. Why are you helping me? Mark paused at the last window, considering the question. Honestly, I have no damn idea. He shrugged. Maybe because no one deserves to be someone else's weapon. A strange look crossed Nix's face, something vulnerable and raw. Then she looked away toward the door. They'll track my energy signature eventually. That blast back there, it was like a beacon. Mark sank onto a wooden chair that groaned under his weight. So what do we do? Nyx met his gaze, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dark. We fight back. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the trees like whispered warnings. Somewhere in the distance, an owl cried out. Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Okay, Glowstick, tell me everything. The cot springs squeaked as Nyx sat up straighter, wincing slightly. Moonlight cut through the cabin's grimy windows, painting silver stripes across her face. She took a deep breath, like she was steadying herself for something painful. They call us Valkyr, she began, her fingers tracing patterns on her knees. Bioengineered weapon systems. The Reaper's perfect soldiers. Mark leaned forward, the old chair creaking under him. Wait us! Are there more like you? Nyx's mouth twisted. There were. She looked down at her hands, where faint blue veins pulsed just beneath her shimmering skin. They grow us in tanks. Program us. Train us to kill whatever they point us at. A cold knot formed in Mark's stomach. Jesus. They don't just make us strong. Nyx held up her palm, and a tiny blue flame flickered to life above it. The light danced in her haunted eyes. They make us burn. Every cell in our bodies is packed with enough energy to level a city block. Mark's throat went dry. You're a walking nuke? The flame vanished as she clenched her fist. Contained. Controlled. Until they send us somewhere, and she mimed an explosion with her fingers. The pieces clicked together in Mark's head. That's why you were so desperate to burn the ship. It could trigger you remotely. Nyx nodded. The failsafe. Every Valkyr has one. That ship was mine. She looked up sharply. But I'm not the only one who escaped. There's a group of us, scattered, hiding. If we can reach them. A floorboard creaked outside the cabin. Mark was on his feet in an instant, bat raised. Nyx's hands began to glow faintly. The doorknob turned slowly. Then 3 quick knocks, a pause, then 2 more. Mark lowered the bat slightly. Rick? The door swung open to reveal a hulking figure backlit by moonlight. Damn right it's Rick. You gonna invite me into my cabin, or what? Rick Stevens filled the doorway, his flannel sleeves straining over biceps the size of hams. His gaze flicked from Mark to Nyx, taking in her glowing eyes and strange suit without blinking. So, alien girlfriend, huh? Nyx bristled. I'm not. Mark cut her off. She's not my girlfriend. Rick, this is Nyx. Nyx, this is a guy who taught me how to hotwire a car. Rick nodded approvingly. Nice to meet ya, Glowstick. Saw the fireworks from my place down the ridge. He tossed a duffel bag onto the table with a heavy thunk. Figured you could use some supplies. Mark unzipped the bag to reveal 2 handguns, boxes of ammo, and, are these grenades? Rick grinned. 4th of July came early this year. Nyx picked up one of the guns, turning it over with surprising familiarity. These won't stop Reapers. Not permanently. Maybe not, Rick said, pulling a flask from his back pocket. But they'll slow him down long enough for you to do your glowy thing. He took a swig and offered it to Mark. So what's the plan, kids? Mark looked at Nyx, who gave him a small nod. We find the others, Mark said, taking the flask. The Valkyr who got away. Rick raised an eyebrow. How are we going to do that? Nyx reached into a hidden pocket in her suit and pulled out a small, crystalline device. It pulsed with soft blue light. This tracks energy signatures like mine. Weak right now, but... She tapped it, and the glow intensified. There's a cluster about 200 miles northeast. Mark took the device, watching the pulse quicken in his hand. What's northeast? Rick snorted. Chicago. Where else do you hide weird shit? Nyx stood, her strength visibly returning. If we can reach them before the Reapers do, we might stand a chance. Mark handed back the tracker, his fingers brushing hers. A tiny spark jumped between them, making them both start. Rick cleared his throat loudly. I'll, go check the perimeter. He grabbed a shotgun from the duffel and headed outside. Nyx studied Mark with those unnerving violet eyes. You don't have to come. This isn't your fight. Mark picked up one of the handguns, checking the magazine with practiced ease. Funny, my granddad used to say the same thing about Normandy. He slammed the mag home with a click. Some fights pick you. Outside, an engine roared to life. Rick's voice carried through the thin walls. You lovebirds coming or what? I ain't got all night. Nix's lips quirked in something almost like a smile. Your friend is loud. Mark grinned. Wait till you see him drive. As they stepped out into the cold night air, the tracker in Nix's hand pulsed faster, like a heartbeat picking up speed. Somewhere out there, others like her were waiting, and the Reapers would be hunting every last one. Rick's pickup truck tore down the back roads at a speed that defied physics, the suspension bottoming out on every pothole. Mark white-knuckled the passenger door while Nix clung to the center console, her glowing eyes wide. Ever heard of brakes? Mark yelled over the roaring engine. Rick grinned, taking a sharp turn that sent gravel flying. Brakes are for people who plan to stop. Nix's tracker pulsed erratically on the dashboard, casting blue light across their faces. The signal had grown stronger with every mile they were getting close. A sudden impact rocked the truck. Something heavy landed in the bed with a metallic clang. Mark twisted in his seat just as a silver hand punched through the rear window. Oh, come on. Nix reacted instantly. Her fist glowed blue as she reached back and grabbed the Reaper's wrist. There was a sizzling sound, and the creature howled, retracting its arm. Rick glanced in the rear view. We got company. 3 black SUVs materialized from the darkness behind them, gaining fast. Mark grabbed one of Rick's grenades from the duffel bag at his feet. You got a sunroof in this thing? Rick hit a button. Now I do. The sunroof slid open just as another Reaper landed on the roof, its distorted face leering down at them. Nix lunged upward, her glowing hands grabbing its head. The Reaper's scream was cut short as she unleashed a pulse of energy, sending it flying off the truck in a shower of sparks. Mark pulled the pin on the grenade. Fire in the hole. He lobbed it through the sunroof. The explosion lit up the night, sending one of the pursuing SUVs flipping end over end in a fireball. Rick hooped. That's my boy. Nix's tracker suddenly blazed like a miniature sun. There! She pointed to an abandoned industrial park looming ahead. They're inside. Rick downshifted violently. Hang on to your butts. The truck plowed through a chain-link fence, screeched across a parking lot, and came to a sideways stop in front of a decrepit factory. The remaining SUVs skidded to a halt behind them, doors flying open as black-suited Reapers poured out. Mark kicked his door open, taking cover behind the truck bed as gunfire erupted. Nix crouched beside him, her entire body humming with energy. We'll cover you, Rick shouted, racking his shotgun. Get your glowstick friends. Mark nodded, gripping his pistol. You sure about this? Nix placed a hand on his arm. Her touch sent a jolt through him. Not painful, but electric. Stay close to me. They broke from cover, sprinting toward the factory doors. Bullets whizzed past them, one grazing Mark's shoulder with a hot sting. He returned fire blindly, more to keep his head down than with any hope of hitting anything. The factory doors were rusted shut, but Nix blasted them open with a pulse from her palm. The interior was cavernous and dark, the air thick with dust and the scent of ozone. Then Mark saw them. Figures emerged from the shadows, 5, 10, maybe more, all with the same shimmering skin as Nix, their eyes glowing in various hues of violet, blue, and gold. A tall Valkyr with golden eyes stepped forward. Nix, you brought humans. Nix didn't lower her guard. They're with me, Soul. Soul's gaze flicked to Mark's bleeding shoulder. They're slowing you down. Mark wiped blood from his cheek. Nice to meet you too, Sunshine. Outside, the gunfire intensified, followed by a massive explosion that shook the building. Soul's eyes narrowed. Reapers? Nix nodded. Enough to wipe out a city. They're not just after us anymore. A younger Valkyr with cobalt blue eyes stepped forward. Then we fight. Soul hesitated, then raised a hand. The other Valkyr mirrored the gesture, their palms beginning to glow. The air crackled with pent-up energy. Nyx turned to Mark, her face grim but determined. This is going to get loud. Mark checked his remaining ammo. 3 rounds. He sighed. When doesn't it? The factory doors exploded inward as the first wave of Reapers charged. Sol roared a single word. Now. The Valkyr unleashed hell. The world turned white. Mark threw his arm up as a concussive wave of energy blasted past him, ripping through the charging Reapers like tissue paper. The Valkyrs stood united, their combined power turning the factory into a storm of blue and gold fire. Metal beams glowed red-hot, then melted. Concrete vaporized. Reapers screamed as their perfect forms were torn apart. Then, as suddenly as it began, the onslaught stopped. Mark lowered his arm, ears ringing. Where dozens of Reapers had stood, only swirling ash remained. The Valkyrs slumped, their glow dimming, all except Nyx, who turned to Sol with fire in her eyes. That was just the advanced team, she panted. More will come. Sol no dead grimly. Then we end this. Tonight. Mark blinked. Anyhow, you just nuked like 50 of them, and you're already talking about round 2? A young Valkyr with emerald eyes, one Mark hadn't noticed before, stepped forward. Not them. The source. She tapped her temple. We've all seen it in the programming. The control hub is beneath Chicago. Rick burst through the ruined doors, shotgun smoking. Well, that explains the property taxes. He did a double take at the devastation. Damn, y'all don't mess around. Sol ignored him, addressing the group. If we destroy the hub, every Reaper in the field shuts down. Nyx's fingers found Mark's, squeezing tight. But it's guarded by an army. And something worse. Mark squeezed back. Worse than those toothy bastards. The architect, several Valkyr murmured at once, a ripple of fear passing through them. Sol's golden eyes burned. We going fast. Hit hard. Nyx, you and your humans take the east approach. Mark raised an eyebrow. We get a vote in this suicide mission. Nyx turned to him, her face unreadable. You don't have to. Mark cut her off with a kiss. It was impulsive, reckless, and over before she could react. He pulled back, grinning. Shut up. I'm in. Rick groaned. Great. Now we're gonna die while you two make puppy eyes. The emerald-eyed Valkyr, Lynn, she'd said her name was, stepped forward with a smirk. I like these humans. Sol clapped her hands to sound like a gunshot. Move out. We hit the hub in 1 hour. As the Valkyr dispersed to prepare, Nyx pulled Mark aside. Her fingers traced the fresh cut on his shoulder, the skin knitting together under her touch. You're insane, she murmured. Mark caught her hand. Takes one to know one, glow stick. Outside, the first hints of dawn painted the sky. Somewhere beneath the city, their enemy waited. The architect, the creator of weapons, the maker of monsters. Nyx's lips curved in something fierce and beautiful. Let's go burn it all down. And as the sun rose over Chicago, the Valkyr and the 2 humans crazy enough to stand with them marched to war. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and as always, keep the last light burning.